Hello, my fellow readers. I'm Dark Symphony 777 with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story I'm doing a review of today is Fallen Kingdom by 7 King Bowser 7. It is a Mario fanfiction, and this review is going to be very different, mainly due to one plot element. So if you actually paid attention to the community post, I actually made a community post not too long ago, that this is going to be a two-part review. The reason being is there is a specific element of this story, which is the evil organization, the main villains of the story called Seven Stars. And while I was writing the cliff notes for this review, I realized there is a lot to talk about with 7 stars, both good and bad. So I wanted to make this review a two-parter. This part one, is going to cover the bare essentials of the plot, more or less going over the general plot, the general characters, the pacing, and the grammar. And then part two will specifically be focused on 7 stars, because, like I said, there's just a sheer amount of stuff going on with that specific group, with that specific plot line that needs to be talked about specifically. And if I do combine them, this video is probably gonna be like probably the longest video in my entire channel. I'm probably gonna go way over an hour, so I don't want to do that. So let's get started. Now, I will say this before I actually get into the review, that when I first read this story, I quite liked it. I liked a lot of what was going on, the very minutia, the details that the story was trying to tell. But as the story went on, I started not liking certain elements, specifically 7 stars, more and more. Really, most of my issues of the story relates to that specific storyline. So again, wait for the second half before hearing my opinion on that. But that goes into the question: what is the main bulk of the plot? Well, the main plot actually starts a time in the past. This happens after Mario and Peach get married. Granted, this was made before Nintendo openly admitted that Mario is friend zoned. Boo. But Mario and Princess do get married. They've been married for about, I think, like a couple months at this point. Bowser took very much umbrage on what specifically happened. So he decided to get the entire Koopa Nation, everyone, as many troops as he can, as many ships as he can, just go big or go home. And he basically did a massive invasion of the Mushroom Kingdom, specifically to get his hands on Peach and to make sure there is definitively Peach is his. Well, what happens? Well, the Mario brothers and also a lot of Mario's friends over the years come to help him, but they're eventually overrun. Luigi is captured by Cammy. Mario goes to rescue Luigi, manages to free him from Cammy. However, as he's turning around to continue the fight, he sees a literal smorgasbord of bullet bills right in front of him. He can't get out of dodge. He can't escape anyway. They all explode. And then we actually get, this is the end of it, and we get a time cut of 20 years. 20 years have passed. Mario is presumed dead. Princess Peach has disappeared into thin air. No one knows what happens. The only thing that us as the reader do know is Luigi is still alive. Now, why is Luigi still alive, despite the fact, technically Mario died? Well, since Luigi is known as the Green Mario by a lot of people in universe, people just forgot that he was alive. They just thought he died. And the people that did know he was alive is like, we'll just leave it. This includes the person who is currently ruling the Mushroom Kingdom, Boom Boom, Captain Boom Boom. And he's just letting Luigi live there because he's guy's depressed. Big whoop, he ain't gonna do anything. and also Boom Boom is lazy. So Luigi is kind of has been going through the motions over the past 20 years. He's now in his 40s, and he's been very much depressed because he hasn't been able to get over the death of Mario. So he goes every day, puts some flowers on Mario's on a spot where Mario presumably died, and and then he just goes to drown himself in Coca-Cola. What happens on this day is Luigi looks out the window and he sees a blue Yoshi getting bullied by several Koopalings. Not Koopalings, Koopa troops, named Cobalt. Luigi is looking out and he pictures himself, what would Mario do? So, of course, Mario would go, well, we rescue, he's somewhat in danger. Let's help him. So Luigi decides to travel outside and beat up three Koopa. It's basically two Koopa Troopas and a charging Chuck. He beats them up. Cobalt completely is enamored by, wait a minute, you're Luigi. He's like, yeah. Oh, did you help me? No. Yep. Luigi doesn't want anything to do with it because he's still kind of, blaming himself for Mario's death. Cobalt, on the other hand, manages to convince him not only to teach him how to jump like a Mario brother, which he does do, he's just not very good at it yet, but also to start a revolution. And this is basically most of the bulk of the story. Probably like 70% of the story is dedicated to this one storyline. The last 30% is just basically the whole thing with the 7 stars. Luigi decides, we're going to start a revolution. We're going to clean out the Mushroom Kingdom, all the Koopa troops, which was easy enough because they're lazy and they don't and they haven't fought in so long, and they haven't trained in so long. They took back Mushroom Kingdom, and they decide we're going to take back all of the Mushroom Kingdom, so that way we can eventually free the world of the Koopa Troop Empire. And everyone's like cheering. It's like that. However, Luigi eventually finds out that there is actually a coup happening between the Koopalings. This is where the whole war thing kind of takes at least a neat twist. So basically, there are two sides to the Civil War. There's Junior side, which is Bowser Jr., Iggy, Morton, Larry, and Wendy, sort of. And on the other side, you have Lemmy, Roy, and Ludwig. They're basically, those three want to stage a coup and take over the entire empire using Bowser's depressive state, because at this point in time, all the Koopalings know that Bowser is quite literally just a shell of his former self, because he's been in like a depressive mood because of Princess Peach's disappearance for 20 years, so he hasn't really been running the country. He's just kind of like in his throne, just sad, just looking out in the distance. Ludwig, Roy, and Lemmy want to take advantage of that. All three of them have different reasonings for why they're doing it. Ludwig basically wants to take over the courtship because, I will say this, this story goes on the assumption that the Koopalings are actually Bowser's kids along with Bowser Jr. Canonically, they're adopted, but in this story, they're like his actual relatives. Ludwig, being the oldest, was supposed to be the heir. However, Bowser randomly one day took the privileges of being the heir from Ludwig and gave it to Bowser Jr. because Bowser Jr. looks like Bowser. It's like, you look like me. You'll be the emperor after I die. Like, what? Ah! And of course, Ludwig did not take this well over the course of 20 years. So Ludwig, being the absolute mad lad he is, decides, okay, I am going to take over the entire empire, stage a coup, because it should be me who's the heir, not Junior, and not for a stupid reason like he looks like his father. Then again, Ludwig has always been the absolute pinnacle of musical and scientific excellence. Look at that quaff. Look at that book. Look at that tooth. So sophisticated. However, there is hidden meaning to why Ludwig's doing it. This is through Ludwig we find out about the Koopaling's mother / Bowser's wife, Lavaria Koopa, who basically died under mysterious circumstances. And this leads to Ludwig believing that if he takes over the country and in essence the empire, he'll be able to look into his mother's death. Spoiler alert, Cammy's already kind of doing that. And through ruling the empire, he believes he can honor his mother's wishes because his mother would be the type of person who would approve of Ludwig being the heir instead of Junior. So it's more so Ludwig is kind of sympathetic in that way. Roy, on the other hand, is just what he just wants to hurt people. That's his whole motivation for doing the coup. It's like, nah, he wants to do all these reasons. Me, I just want to hurt. I just want to punch something real hard. And that's basically Roy's role as part of the coup. He has the largest military. He just really wants to hurt people. It's as simple as that. Lemmy, on the other hand, he's more complicated. He's not really doing the coup for any particular reason besides to save his own skin. Because out of all the Koopalings, Ludwig and Roy are the only ones that actually have a legitimate fighting force. Ballot Jr. does have an army, but compared to Roy's numbers, because he was the military man, and Ludwig, who more or less succeeded in like technology and artificial weaponry and all that, he's the one who built all the warships you would see in like Mario Galaxy and all that. He built all that. These guys, they built all this stuff. None of the other Koopalings, because none of the other Koopalings really are fighters. Like, it's even revealed that Morton just basically has Princess Daisy under house arrest, and he just comes inside. He comes inside her room just to ask her, like, what law should I do? How do I run this country and stuff like that. So none of the other Koopalings are really that into wanting to rule the empire. They just want to do their own thing. So Lemmy's like, okay, if I don't sign with them, they're probably gonna kill me. They're definitely gonna kill me. So I'm gonna side with them specifically to save my skin. It's three different dynamics of the coup. You have sympathetic, you have more opportunistic, and then you just have Roy who's just jackass. And again, it's Roy Koopa. You don't mess with Roy Koopa; he'll just punch you in the face. And that's more or less a basic overview of the plot. Luigi's just trying to scrounge around, get as many helpers and people to join the cause while having to work around the civil war that's happening around him between both Junior and the other Koopalings versus Roy, Ludwig, and Lemmy, and trying to scrounge up just any sort of force because it's like, okay, we're hopelessly outmatched. We're in between two really, really angry, pissed off factions. We need to work around this, which is why most of the story, Luigi and Cobalt kind of go by themselves, do their own thing. Junior, in response, when they get to Mushroom City and eventually do liberate Mushroom City, Junior puts up a forceful draft. Everyone is joining Junior's army. This includes Cobalt. Luigi is rescued by Waluigi because Waluigi the best. While Cobalt is forced to separate from Luigi because he is conscripted into the Koopa troop, and the story kind of divulges from there, where it switches between Cobalt's point of view and Luigi's point of view. And one thing I do at least want to bring up with this decision is, despite the fact Luigi is considered the main character, his side of the story, once the split happens, feels very much like the B plot, while Cobalt's, despite coming off as technically the second main character, is very much the star of this point of the story. This is mainly due to highlight, I guess you could say, the thematic storytelling of Cobalt's character wanting to become a hero, and in essence, carry on Luigi and Mario's footsteps. So he kind of takes the stage as the main focal point of this point of the story. They do eventually meet again in the and the story is kind of divulged, and the story focuses heavily on Luigi after that. But at this point in time, Cobalt is very much the main character, and Luigi is more or less a side character because there's so much that needs to be done, specifically from Cobalt's point of view, plot wise, that it just makes more sense. And I'm not saying this is not bad. This is more just creative writing decision. Now, once they meet up, they get a lot of troops. They get Cobalt gets all of Mario's old friends who are locked up. He gets his captain when he was in the Koopa Troop Strike, who's basically this fire bro who was obsessed with Koopa Troopa, the honor of the old Koopa Troop. Basically, they don't. No, we're not warmongers. We're not fight. We're not. Uh, we're not these like disgusting bullies. We're soldiers. I want the honor of the old Koopa Troop back instead of like these bullies who are just killing and attacking people. And they Cobalt and Strike actually unite over this idea to want to fix the Koopa Troop and clean it of the actual corruption. And Luigi gets like Waluigi and Wario and the criminal enterprises, and eventually they kind of have to team up with Bowser Jr. because Bowser Jr. actually realizes that none of the other Koopalings are really much of a fighter, and they don't really have much of an army. And so he's like, I have to work with Luigi because it's really all I have. Otherwise, Ludwig will win. And Ludwig's probably going to be a worse dictator than Bowser. All right, that's how it is. And more or less, that is how the general plot is. Again, the story completely focuses on the 7 stars once we get to the end game, but until then, this is more or less how the plot functions. There are a little more nuances, like the whole thing with with Koops working for Lemmy, and also the other partners, and then eventually Peach does show up, and Mario does show up. Turns out they were never alive, and then there's also Cammy's involvement with this in the latter half of the story. But I'll save all 3 of those for the second video because they're more tied into that specific plot rather than the whole thing with the Civil War. But by and large, this is how the plot is until those last 15 or so chapters. And for what it is, the plot is actually really well done. It's not flashy, it's not complicated. It's a very simplistic war story, but it gets the job done of what it's trying to tell of how Luigi would run a war campaign. And instead of doing what Mario would do and just jumping head first and charging blindly into the battle, Luigi takes a more conservative approach. He's basically he thinks things through. He has to play around 2 opposing factions, and he's like, okay, let's just free the Mushroom Kingdom and then kind of work from there. And he's very much like a guy that thinks things through, but will definitely play it by ear if absolutely necessary. And I think it's a very nice touch on how to tell this type of story through the eyes of someone who wouldn't realistically have this type of story attached to them with Luigi. Now, with characters, I will say Luigi's a very simplistic character. I'm not saying Luigi's a bad character. I would say Luigi's more of a disappointing character. Here's the thing. Luigi doesn't really have a lot of character development. He has some. I will gladly say he does have some minor character development of him, kind of just getting a little bit more brave, but it's so minor for what is essentially the main character of the story that it kind of comes off as more could have been done with it. Again, not saying Luigi is bad. I just think he's disappointing. He does have a lot of depth because the whole every game is canon aspect. So there is a lot of depth attached to him, especially when we find out about his father and his uncle, and also the family relationship between them and Bowser's family. So there's a lot. So Luigi does have a lot of depth. He just doesn't have a lot of character development. Cobalt, on the other hand, Cobalt has a lot of character development. He has a solid character arc. Him realizing that, hey, I'm working with Luigi. Luigi is a hero, and seeing like this heroism that is coming from Luigi, even knowing that Luigi's kind of a coward, seeing him like stand up and march forward and try and run this war campaign, it's inspiring Cobalt to want to become a hero, not for like any glory, but like being a hero is a good thing. Like I've seen all these people be dragged to the dirt, be bullied, be subjugated. I want to help these people out, and having him, especially when he goes by himself into the Koopa Troop, and seeing that by and large the Koopa Troop is just a bunch of normal people. They're with flaws and warts and all. And some of them actually don't want Bowser to be running the world, like his captain. And so we got a perfectly serviceable character arc of Cobalt just growing into his role as a genuine hero, someone who wants to fight for the people and protect them, and just do it because he just wants to do it. It's a very good story arc. It's nothing complicated. There's not. It's very surface level in how it's executed, but the execution is perfectly done. It's just you're not going to expect anything too deep with it. But hey, for what it is, it's done really well. There's Captain Flame. I mean, not, not Captain Flame. That's Commander Flame. Commander Flame is basically a showboat, and egotistical fire bro who are just obsessed with wanting fame and fortune. A large part of the first part of the story, basically, there's different arcs, not arcs, acts that technically have them as different villains. Flame is technically the main villain of Act One, but he's more like a goofball villain where he's so obsessed with fame and fortune that he kind of keeps screwing up. Like, okay, Luigi's at Mushrooms Toad Town, right? Yes. Should we tell Junior? No, because if Junior hears about this, he will get involved, and all the fame will go to him. I'm going to send five ships, put him outside the Toad Town, and then just wait. And then eventually, when he finds out about the forced conscription by Junior, all the ships have to go, and he's like on his. And Junior finds out that Luigi's alive anyway, so he's like, he kind of falls on his face. He's very egotistical. He's very showbooty. He's like a villain that is barely a villain. Act 2 technically has Roy as the villain. Act 3 has Ludwig. And then Act 4 has 7 stars, essentially. And that's more or less with his character. Roy is just a bully. He's perfectly fine. Lemmy, he's very sneaky. He goes by the name Cheatsy. He will outsmart you, and he's the intelligent one in this. Ludwig, on the other hand, is more morally complex. A large part of the story actually does take place from Ludwig's point of view, as we get to see his mindset on everything. With him absolutely loathing, but still respecting Junior because, like, we're still brothers. Like, I'm going to take the throne from you, but you're still my brother. Oh, by the way, punch to the face. And he basically wants the throne away from Junior. It's even implied that if not for Junior being told to have the throne, Ludwig wouldn't be doing this. And his mindset into not only how seven stars operations work, because we're introduced to 7 stars through Ludwig, because they give him technology from the now dead Shroom Empire, in order to make his death machines that allow him to run rampant on the other sectors that the Koopalings rule and slowly encroach and take over everything. But Ludwig is very well done. He's a more morally complicated character because there are shades of gray to him, and that you can see that he thinks what he's doing is right because he does have a legitimate grievance. Like, honestly, if you're supposed to be the heir and you get the heir that right taken to you by someone who's younger than you, who only gets the heir because he looks like the father, that's a legitimate reason to get pissed. Like, honestly, that's just kind of salt in the wound at that point. And Ludwig's just a really well done, not really sympathetic character, but a villain who does more than any of the other villains. He's probably the best written villain outside of one of the specific members of 7 Stars. I'll talk about Skulls when I get to him. But he's a really fleshed out character. We're introduced to a lot of key plot points through him, and he is very crucial to the plot. Anyone else? Really, that's it. Pretty much everyone else I want to talk about, I have to talk about in the second video. So yeah, take it as it is. Grammar error. Grammar. There's a lot of grammar errors. This has to be one of the most bad stories in terms of grammar I've ever seen. I think like the last time I seen a story with this many grammar errors is Total Drama Cruise, and that story was just riddled with grammar errors. Granted, that story got cleaned up. This story, this story really needs to get a sense of polish to it when it comes to the grammar. It's that bad. Pacing wise, I do like the pacing. It's very, very fast paced because here's the thing with this specific story, a lot of these chapters happen more or less simultaneously. So like a part of the story that focuses on like when Luigi and Cobalt separate, one chapter can focus on Luigi, but the next chapter can focus on Cobalt. But they happen at the same time. It's just they're two different they're just at two different locations. So a lot of stuff is happening at once, and the author has to juggle all these different characters: Roy, Lemmy, Ludwig, Luigi, technically Toadette, Mario when he shows up, the entire group of 7 stars, Cammy, Cobalt, Strike, Commander Flame, Bowser Jr. He has to juggle all of these characters at once, and I think in terms of juggling and bouncing all these characters off each other is done really well, and the story does flow seamlessly from one part to another. This is like a very fast-paced story done right. I will say at times it is a little too fast paced. I would have preferred some parts of the story that felt more like thematically to kind of separate Cobalt from Luigi more, like having Luigi's sections be more slower paced while keeping Cobalt's Cobalt's chapters and parts like more high octane, more fast paced. It kind of reflects the whole new age thing, but Luigi's being fast paced doesn't really is not really a detriment to the entire story. And it's at its core a minor nitpick. But I do think the pacing is done really well. Uh, would I re- would I would normally go? Would I recommend this? The whole recommend. Uh, oh wait, there is one more thing I completely forgot about it, and that is the fight scenes. This these fights in this story are over the top, and I love it. They are just over the top, goofy anime action that is just really hilarious. Like a part of the story where Ludwig and Roy fight, like Roy versus Luigi. It's just over the top. Where Roy punches Luigi and Luigi flies through like 3 skyscrapers, and Luigi like just slightly has a struggle getting up. It's over the top. It's very anime, but I think that is also like a boon to the story. It could be seen as a detriment to like people who don't like this type of over the top story. I think what the story is trying to accomplish with this is just ending this the ending the conflict between the Mushroom and Kingdom and Koopa Troop, and also like everyone being older and stronger and using the vast canon of Mario. It makes sense just trying to go for these just over the top, goofy ass fights. They could be turned off to some people. I think they're fine. I do think they do dredge a little bit in the over the topness, but I think overall they're fine. I have nothing to complain about them. That's it. It's like you could probably pause and read this right here and see just how ridiculous it is. Uh, as for would I recommend it, favorite part, and what would I do to fix things, I'm not gonna say any of these because I'm gonna say this for part 2. So I will see you then. This has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.